Okay, I'm going to look at two ratio problems, ratio and proportion problems here. This is from the notes on application questions. So I'm going to start off with problem number one. And here we're going to just set up a proportion. And on this one, on all proportions, first thing you're really going to want to do is set up your ratio, such as like boys to girls. Okay, and if boys is in the numerator, when you go to set up your proportion, if this represents your boys and your denominator represents your girls, then your numerator should always represent your boys and your denominator should always represent your girls. So whatever's in the numerator is always in the numerator, and what's ever in the denominator needs to always stay in the denominator. Okay, so you need to keep that in mind as you're setting up these problems. So in problem number one, they say a map scale reads 2 inches equals 5 miles. The distance between the two cities on the map is 5.5 inches. How many miles apart are the cities? So we just want to set up a basic proportion here. So in our proportion, we um, notice that the two values we have is inches and miles. So I'm going to let inches be in the numerator and miles be in the denominator. So I'm always going to put inches in the numerator and miles in the denominator. So for 2 inches, I have 5 miles. And then it says the distance between the two cities on the map is 5.5 inches. So that would go in the numerator. And we want to know how many miles apart they are. So miles, that's in the denominator. Okay. So in this case, we can just go ahead, since it's a proportion, and cross multiply. So in this problem, we've got 2 times x and 5.5 times 5. So we get 2x equaling 5 times 5.5 gets you 27.5. Dividing that by 2, x does come out to be 13.75 miles, which is your answer on this particular question. Okay, so let's do one additional one here. I'm going to go ahead and do problem number 8. Okay. And on problem number 8, this is very real life example here. This is how they normally figure out populations of animals, whether it be fish or deer or bears or whatnot. They just set up a proportion here and use the proportion to estimate the population. So it says 40 smallmouth bass were caught from a lake and marked by the Department of Fishery personnel. They were then put back into the lake several months later. 70 fish were caught from the same lake, 8 were marked. Estimate the number of smallmouth bass in the lake. So we're looking to find the number of smallmouth bass in the lake, and that would be the total amount of smallmouth bass. So in this particular problem, looks like we're looking for the total population of bass, and we know we have some bass that we have caught and we have marked. We have some marked there, and we know that we marked some at the beginning. So for our proportion here, I'm just going to go ahead, I'm going to write this proportion over here to the side. For our proportion here, we are going to have marked fish over our total population. Okay, we have marked fish over total population. So in this one, it says 40 smallmouth bass were caught from the lake and marked. So 40 were caught and marked, so we start off with 40 marked fish. Now that was 40 fish out of the entire lake. Now the question is, do we know how many fish were in the entire lake? Because we knew we marked 40 of the total population. Well, we're actually looking for the total population of smallmouth bass here, so we're going to let that be x. So then, further in the question here, it says They later put them back in the lake. Then several months later, 70 fish were caught from the same lake and 8 were marked. So we know 8 of them were marked, and the total population that were caught out of that lake were 70. So now we have ourselves a proportion, marked over total, marked over total. So we can just cross multiply this and solve. So if we multiply x times 8, you get 8x, and that equals 40 times 70 is 2,800. Divide 2,800 by 8, and I will confirm that up here. You get 350, and that would technically be bass. Okay, so there's your final answer on number 8. So those are just ratio and proportion questions. Set up the ratio, in this case mark the total population, and then set up the proportion, plugging in the numbers where they go. Okay.